Well, I see this tournament, and this is my 10th season, and by far the most balanced, most talented teams that are, you're talking about 8, 9 teams have an opportunity to the NCAA tournament. Anybody that's playing a hard game, the first game. And it doesn't matter if you're playing Wednesday, Thursday, your game is going to be a hard game. And, so it should be a really interesting weekend.
It's kind of a random question for this, but wanted to get it in with you. Writing something about the 2014 Wichita State game that you guys played. It's been 5 years now. I wondered what your memories are of how high level of a game that was, and also your thoughts on the fact that it was such a strange situation. Kentucky randomly is the underdog, quote unquote, in a game like that against an undefeated team. It was a game where we weren't seeded right. I mean, it was crazy to be an 8 seed. And what I said was they didn't punish us. They punished Wichita State. Wichita State should have never been playing Kentucky in their second game, ever. An 8 seed. I think we won our tournament or did something crazy. I can't remember. But I'm like saying, you don't, when you misseed a team, you don't hurt them. You hurt who they play against. And so it was a game that came down to the last shot, and they happened to miss it. But we played good basketball, and from there went to the Final Four and had a chance to win the whole thing. Guard speed really matters, and we find out later that Connecticut had great guards and were on the same kind of run we were on. Do you remember how well some of those? I know Andrew Harrison said to Ron Baker, "You're a bad boy" after that game, and Clay Anthony Early may have gotten himself drafted off that game.
Yeah, it was. I don't remember all of the stuff. I just remember that it was, never a game that you said, "Okay, we're winning, we're losing." It was just you figured it out when the last shot was taken. It was one of those kind of games.
John, you mentioned after the game Saturday about if the guys wanted to get away for a couple of days, just as a refresher mentally and physically, they turned that down. How concerned are you about after a long season their mental and physical freshness?
Well, the whole reason we do what we do and how we do this is to make sure they're fresh legs and fresh minds in the end of the year. And that's the goal, which means you're not overwhelming them with practices, you're not overwhelming them with film sessions. Mentally, you're not trying to beat them down. Now, you're trying to hold them accountable. You're trying to get them to understand energy, that you got to get to the point where you're playing 40 minutes the same way. You don't rise to the level of the competition. You fall back on your training in the process. And if you fall back on that and do that for 40 minutes, that gives you your best opportunity to keep advancing.
And I wonder, too, about freshness, if it's different at a Kentucky where every dribble is examined as opposed to your earlier stops, UMass and Memphis.
No, because every game was the biggest game on the other team's schedule the last 5 years of both of those places, the last 6 years, really. Everything was sold out. Everything was the biggest game. Every game was you have to win. When we were there, you're trying to win to hold your seed. We had to win we had to win every game. And that's why they said, "How did you win that many straight games?" And said, "We had to hold our seat." So, no, it's all the same. And how you practice, how long you practice, how much you occupy their time. Do you make games like you're climbing mountains every game, or is every game the same? Every approach to every game has been the same, and will continue to be the same.
Hey, John, Arkansas has won 3 in a row, and they kind of started getting it going again when they played you guys tough there in Rupp. Do you see Arkansas as maybe being a dangerous team in Nashville, or kind of what's your take on them late in the season?
Yeah, they obviously had a chance to beat us. And again,
we're just different. It's funny. I got a great call from Coach Cheney after our last game about watching our team and said, the way you defended the second half, the way you played offensively, where you didn't settle for threes, that you got yourself to the free throw line, you drove the ball, you're playing in a way that you can succeed. And he's right. In the Arkansas game, it was that. I mean, Florida took 18 threes, we took 7. We drove the ball and got to the foul line. It was the same thing that happened with our game with Arkansas, and they played well enough to beat us. Even with that, and it's getting to the line like we have all year, more than the other teams. But this tournament is for everybody. It's going to be hard. Their first game is a hard game. Second game will be a really hard game. Our first game is going to be a hard game. Our second game is huge. If we can get by the first, I'm probably not even worried that we're playing the second game.
Hey, John, just wondering, what have you been happiest with about the way Keldon Johnson has progressed this season?
The kid really cares, and that's so important. And the kid's trying to do the right stuff, and so, that's really important. And he also is self-evaluating. He recognizes when, he's not doing what we're asking him to do, or he loses focus, or he's not engaged. He now accepts and evaluates. That's the step to changing. And so he's growing up right before our eyes. But, it's not just him. How about how well Emmanuel's playing right now? How about that both Nick and EJ have had a chance because of Reed to get a lot of time. And during that time, we're 3-1. And we played 2 of those on the road against 2 of our better teams and played 2, like we're just talking about Arkansas, who could have beat us and won the next 3 games that is playing well. And we played Florida, who's playing well, and the games they've lost have all been like buzzer games or tip-in games. So, it's not just him. Tyler Hero's growing up. I told him, if you're a man, your responses are like a man. When you're a child, you respond to things like a child. And I said, it's time to grow up. You got to be a man. You got to self-evaluate. You got to understand that if you want to be a man, you got to leave childish responses behind, or you're still a child.
Did Keldon try to put too much on himself too quick?
They all do. These kids, and I told them again the other day, I respect them. I respect what these kids go through. I respect what's at stake. I respect the clutter they got to deal with. I respect that. It's hard, and it's even harder here because now, they're getting it 10 different ways. And the other team is coming. There's no okay, wow, we got a good game, and I can just go play basketball and not worry about this other what? But again, it's all about growing up. It's all about dealing with clutter. It's all about being a man in your response to things. I talked to him about the flattery. It's poison. Why would someone flatter you and also demean anybody else on our team or any of our coaches or me? To make you feel good about you so you feel good about them. That's flattery. You don't want to hear flattery. If someone wants to give you an honest opinion about what you got to do to get better, listen to that. Well, you should be playing more, shooting more. You're better than this guy and that. You're so good. You can't, and they don't do this, and they're not doing that to you. You listen to that, that's poison. That's when you start going down that wrong road.